Well, what happens if the Australian people reject the Indigenous voice to Parliament? According to the Prime Minister, a no victory would deal reputational damage to this country. He's hardly alone. Many prominent figures warn that the defeat of the voice will ignite global condemnation. Really? Well, the first thing to say is that this sense of parochialism, that the world constantly scrutinises our political affairs, it seriously overstates our nation's place in world affairs. As a foreign policy commentator, Owen Harries once remarked, in many parts of the world for long stretches of time, good peripheral vision is required to be aware of Australia at all. When we do attract attention abroad, as often as not, it's either for some natural calamity, floods, bushfires, shark attacks, sporting, cultural or entertainment achievement, or for our charms as a holiday destination. The rest of the world, far from reacting to Canberra's political theatrics, is preoccupied with their own far more serious problems. Bear also in mind some history. What John Howard called cultural dietitians are so ashamed of their nation when things don't go their way that they seem intent on blackening the image of our country. The uproar that followed the newly elected Howard's failure to demonise Pauline Hanson in 1996 is a case in point. My old Radio National colleague Philip Adams indulged in the political left's wonderful talent for overstatement when he warned Australia would, quote, occupy the proud place vacated by pre-Mandela South Africa. Despite this rhetoric, the electorate was hardly disturbed and Howard won the next 3 elections and became something of an international statesman. In the lead up to the 1999 Republican referendum, several former Australian ambassadors warned that a no vote, as Richard Butler cautioned, would, quote, damage Australia's international reputation and undermine the nation's trade interests. Yet within a few years, the constitutional monarchy of Australia signed its biggest export deal, a $25 billion agreement to supply LNG to China, and enjoyed lucrative trade deals across the region, proving our international reputation was unharmed. There are many more examples of losers blackening our nation's global image, yet Australia's moral standing and legitimacy are unquestioned. In 1953, after communists crushed a workers' revolt in East Berlin, the German communist playwright Bertolt Brecht accused the regime of wanting to, quote, dissolve the people and elect another. He meant it as irony, but that quip has all too often been the attitude of our intellectual and cultural class. Indeed, those who appeal most readily to the supposed moral authority of world opinion as representing a sort of global majority verdict, they don't understand the basic principle underlying constitutional representative government. Legitimate sovereignty ultimately rests with the citizens. Why should a UN committee or some international NGO, for example, possess greater wisdom and maturity than the Australian electorate? Now, if the people reject the voice, it's a fair bet this nation will remain a tolerant, welcoming, liberal democracy and civilised society where the rule of law applies equally to every citizen. Imperfect as we certainly are, Australia is one of the world's most successful nations. It requires a great deal of something: self-hatred, guilt, sense of inferiority, or just fashionable foolishness not to recognise that fact.